Pleasure to have you here in Leicester. I know why you have chosen Leicester, because many people don't know we are actually in the centre of the universe. And,
I thought that was Burnley.
Well, okay, Burnley Part 2. Welcome to the city.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you here. And you've taken time from your busy schedule to come pay us a visit on some very important subjects that's in the public domain. There is no day that goes past without the mass media talking about the terrible state people find themselves in places like Syria and the other countries, and the amount of aid that we can possibly give to these part of the countries. The suffering is something that is unbearable, to be quite honest. And the question that we wish to ask, of course, of government is, we know you're doing a wonderful amount of work there, you're giving a lot of aid. Is there much more that we can do, or is there some sort of partnership working that can take place between the government and the people in order that we can do whatever we can for the needy in that part of the world?
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the welcome. It's a pleasure to be in Leicester.
Thank you.
I mentioned Burnley because that's my hometown, and we share promotion to the Premier League, so we are happy people in the soccer front.
So have we. It's gone to the Premier League as well.
No, you beat us.
Okay.
You came first. You came first. We came second. But we're both up, which is great. But thank you, and I'd like to ask you a question, maybe later on you could answer, about the Federation and what it does, because you talked about partnership, and I think that's very important. Just to describe myself briefly and why I'm with you today. I'm a former diplomat. I used to be in the British diplomatic service. I retired in February of this year. My last job was in Jerusalem as a Consul General, so effectively representing the British government to the Palestinian government and people in Ramallah, visiting Gaza. Before then, I was ambassador under the time of Gaddafi in Libya, and before that I was our High Commissioner in Malta when they joined the European Union. But today I'm very interested in talking about the region of the Middle East, Syria, and what the British government is trying to do there, Iraq, the neighbouring country, where I also spent a little time, and the Palestinian issue after the Gaza tragedy. Maybe to begin, just a word about Syria, because you kindly said that a lot of work is going on there. There is a lot of work happening. It's not enough. It's work by people in the community, giving so generously during Ramadan and since and before to the cause of helping their fellow citizens, fellow human beings in Syria. And just to describe the problem briefly, the crisis has been going on for more than 3 years. The British government has been engaged trying to help on the humanitarian front through our Department for International Development. So the British taxpayer has found £600 million for this issue because it's so big and because it's gone on so long. And that's more than we've given as a government to any crisis in the world, more than to Haiti, more than to any natural or, sadly, this is a man-made disaster. £600 million, which is a lot, but not enough. It's going on all the right things, on tents, on water, on education, keeping people alive. There are 3 million refugees outside Syria, out of a population of only 24 million. And inside Syria, about half the population is displaced, in need of help. We're trying to get our aid through, both through the United Nations and through trusted charities like Islamic Relief, Oxfam, Save the Children, both through the borders, without President Assad's approval, and through the UN with his blessing, so to speak. Those two angles, we hope, will ensure that we can reach the people who need help. We're also trying to work politically. Frankly, the political situation there is very, very complex. I would say messy, even. We don't think President Assad is the future. He has lost the trust of his people through use of chemical weapons and many other things. Currently, he is bombarding his own second city of Aleppo. So we don't think he's the future, but the regime continues. We're supporting the National Coalition, which is more representative, we think, of the Syrian people than he is. We're supporting them with some money for things like communications and firefighting, and political advice, media training, and so on. It's an uphill struggle. We're trying to use the UN and work within the United Nations as best we can. There's a new representative called Stefan de Mistura, who is their special representative for Syria. And we think that only a political outcome will resolve this. Nobody's going to win this fighting. And perhaps the last point on the general picture is this phenomenon of what is the self-styled Islamic State in Iraq and in the Levant. We are horrified by what it is doing. We don't think that the Syrian people want that future, nor do they want President Assad, which is why we're looking for this middle way, which is taking so much time. But in the meantime, communities such as the community of Leicester can help and are helping on the humanitarian front by giving to registered charities that we know and trust, and you know and trust, to get the food, the tents, the water, the services into those people in need quickly and as safely as possible.
Thank you very much for the update. If I just go back quickly on the Federation,
yes,
where we actually fit in the community. We are a voluntary organisation in existence for some 30 years. In fact, this is our 30th year in office. The various individuals that serve on the Federation as volunteers are elected members, and they give of the time freely for the betterment of the community. We have Leicester with over 65,000 Muslims, a growing population, and the Federation is, I would say, the effective voice of the Muslim community. We are a non-sectarian body, so we draw in membership from both Shia, Sunni, and all the splinter groups beneath that, and we managed to keep the community gelled and working together. The aim of the objection, of course, of the Federation was, many years ago, was to look at social welfare needs of the community, and we progressed from there into working with education, health provision, etc. But what we cannot divorce ourselves from is what's happening internationally, and as you have so elegantly put it, the issue around the aid that's been going there, but also the problems that we face, be it in Gaza, be it in Iraq, be it in Syria and other parts of the world. And because our membership is made up of people from different mosques and different organizations, we have within the Federation charity organizations that do a lot of work in problem places all over the world. We have many human rights agencies that are part and parcel of the Federation. So it's an issue that we need to address. And there was some talk some time back that should the Federation be involved in political issues. And I think it's very difficult to divorce yourself from political issues, especially when it's in your room day in, day out. What we find, unfortunately, what's happening in Syria, of course, is the displacement of people, the sheer death and destruction. And the Muslim community in general are very grateful for the amount of aid that the government is giving. How do we know this? Well, back in March this year, we had a small conference with the Foreign Consul Office in attendance, with people from the Department of International Development, Charity Commission, and of course we had the Home Office that were in attendance as well. And they were given an opportunity to ask questions, and from what we gauged on that particular day was that people are engaged. Sometimes what happens is the political issue that confronts us seems to muddy the waters in relation to what people can do and cannot do in relation to aid. The difficulty we have is, of course, many people, of course, work with charities, and we encourage people to work with registered charities because there is the obvious transparency, accountability, etc. And we discourage people from actually physically going down to that part of the world to try and give aid on their own, for a simple reason is they may not necessarily have the corridors open to them, they may face other difficulties, and as a result the government ultimately is responsible for its citizens that go to that part of the world. So what we say to members of the community is very simple, that please continue doing the good work, collect for Syria and other parts of the world, but channel it through a registered charity, a charity of your own choosing. It's not for us to say which charity should be supported. That is not the role of the Federation. And that kind of work has now translated into other advice that we are giving. Advice in relation to when people collect, example, on streets. We said that they have to access local authority license in order that people can collect money. They have to be of a certain age. People need to be carrying in some sort of identification with them to ensure that they are working for that, because we've had, unfortunately, certain individuals from other parts of the country have actually come in Leicester, and there has been one or two cases that have gone through the courts where people have actually falsely collected on the name of another organisation. So this check and double check is crucial. Structures in place is crucial. This is a way we can work forward. But what's often happening, Sir Vincent, is this, that I think the political agenda seems to overrule and take over everything else that's happening here. And we are losing focus in relation to what's happening on the ground, the need of the poor people that are out there. The UK government and the British people, I believe, are people that are the most generous that you can find anywhere in the world. Whenever a crisis hits us, be it an earthquake, a tsunami, the great British public are always in the forefront, and our government has. In fact, our budget, the Department of International Development, has not been cut. So it just shows our commitment to international communities. The idea here is, how do we then join the two parties together so we have a buy-in? And the buy-in can only take place if there's communication between government and the local community. So following on from what took place in March this year, we set up visiting different cities up and down the country, trying to speak to mostly masajids, which are mosques, and trying to invite people to a centre where they can raise their questions. Questions are not normally answered in the mass media as we see, because the mass media normally has sort of sound bites that they wish to capture, and people have bigger questions to ask. And this partnership working with the FCO and various agencies has enabled people up and down the country to start entering into the debate. And the debate has to be brought in at that very local level. How do we do that? Well, we've done some of these talks and conferences, and I'm sure you have attended some of these, but it's basically education and awareness. How do we reach the masses in order that people truly understand what's happening? And certainly for Muslims, it's been widely recorded that of all the faith communities, we are one of the largest donors in relation to giving money to charitable causes, not only internationally, because here in Leicester, we have supported local charities, we have supported our local hospital or hospice, etc. So it is within the DNA of the Muslim. In fact, it's part of the pillar of the faith of Islam that requires one to give in charity and to help those that are facing trauma in other parts of the world. But I think we are better and more effective if we work in partnership with government and with the charities to ensure a number of issues. Not only that money does not go astray, but if we have least in relation to management costs, because the less charities we have, the less overheads there is. As a result, more can go to the people out there. I've already stated the obvious, the accountability and the transparency that comes with working with registered charities. And of course, the trustees of the charities are accountable to the Charity Commission in relation to what they do. So there is an audit account that's taking place there, which is so crucial for us, I think, for people to have the confidence to say, my hard-earned pound that I have given has actually reached the person who has to be. Yes. And this is where I think we need to do some more of this work. And we are open to ideas, we are open to partnership working with government, because end of the day it is something that I'm sure complement each other. And how can we work together? And we look for some ways in which you may suggest of how we can possibly work together in future.
Thank you. Well, looking at the partnership in government between the Foreign Office, where I used to be, and the Department for International Development, you're quite right that as a government we are generous, but we are representing the people who are generous. And working together in parallel, the communities donating to registered charities, to Islamic Relief, to Oxfam, to Save the Children, to organisations that are known and respected and have a track record. That's a good way to go. As far as the government is concerned, you're also right that the Department for International Development programme budget, its spending, is on the increase by a government decision, which is, I think, being welcomed by the majority of the British people, to expand the scale and scope of what we can do on a humanitarian level. As I said earlier, the work that our Department for International Development is doing in Syria is the biggest emergency work that we're doing anywhere in the world, and that we have ever done in the world, because of the scale of the problem. But that £600 million is money well spent. I'm afraid that this winter is going to be another bad one for the people of Syria. I spent some time in Syria as a junior diplomat between 1979 and 82, when Hafez al-Assad was president. And it is a place that's very close to my family's heart. We have 2 children there, and that ties you to a place. But my point about the cooperation, and the point about Leicester, is that finding a way to bring together the work that's being done at the governmental level, often through agencies like Islamic Relief, getting real needs met on the ground in Syria and in the neighbouring countries, Turkey, Lebanon, Iraq, Jordan, where there are so many refugees, 3 million refugees now, and maybe growing. That partnership needs to grow. It exists. It's good, but it needs to grow. And the other point that you kindly made in your intervention is very important. Using these established charities with Arabic-speaking workers who understand how to get equipment and water and so on, medical equipment, into the areas of need inside Syria is so important. There are established paths now. The conflict, sadly, has been going on so long, but there are established ways in, through Jordan, through Turkey, through Lebanon, for aid convoys run by these charities, often funded by our Department for International Development and other international donors, which can get into places that President Assad doesn't want them to be, but where there are people in need. That's what's happening. There needs to be more. There needs to be more done. There needs to be more spending, and there needs to be more activity by the local communities to top up what our Department for International Development is doing. But the key point that you made, and it's important, is that the best way in which our communities can help is by activity on the ground, both political and developmental activity, but here in the United Kingdom, urging on our government on the humanitarian front and on the political front to try and find a solution to this problem, which is not going to end in any military victory for anybody, and to entrust people's money to those registered charities, but not to head off as an individual to try to do good in a region which is a war zone. As I said, I came from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Their travel advice is don't go to Gaza, don't go to Syria, don't go to central Iraq. The reason is simple. In each case, it is not possible for us to guarantee the welfare of British citizens once they get there. In the particular case of Iraq and Syria, it's even worse. There are people out there who can mislead, who can lead people astray. So even if a well-intentioned humanitarian worker seeks to go to Syria to make a difference, there is a risk that that individual could fall into the wrong company. And it's all too easy. We have seen some examples of it. Now, that partnership, coming back to Leicester, that partnership of trying to explain what the British government is trying to do on behalf of our people in those places, in Syria, in Iraq, in Gaza, Palestine. That's partly why I'm here. The partnership that you mentioned with the Federation is real. It can grow. I think that finding individuals and communities who are interested in listening, asking questions, questioning the policy of the government, to check that we're doing what we should, in those three areas, in Syria, Iraq and in the Israel-Palestine conflict. That's what democracy is about, and that's partly why we have been listening to you since that March visit to Leicester and trying to reach out in other parts of the United Kingdom.
Thank you for allowing us to broaden the subject somewhat wider than what it is. I do appreciate that many people that may hear this particular conversation may ask the question in relation to foreign policy and the role of government, etc. Though I appreciate that that is problematic for some people, and we have addressed it, believe it or not. I have written to at least 27 MPs, just in recent issue with Gaza that has taken place. The idea here is not that we agree necessarily with foreign policy or do not agree, but that is not the core subject that we are discussing. I think the core subject today, and this is for people that are maybe listening to this particular conversation in hand, is we will not be doing justice to the memory of those people that have lost their lives, innocent people, for those that are sitting in refugee camps looking for where the next meal is coming from. As winter sets in, they need warm clothing, blankets, etc. Now, we can philosophize and talk about the evils of the world and policy forevermore. How is that going to relate to the need of somebody on the ground? And I'd rather, this time, concentrate more in relation to though touch the issues of political disputes that people may have, but I do not think that should dominate this particular conversation. And I think there's a time and a place for this, and I certainly don't believe that this is a time for it, though we're going to allude to it somewhat. It is problematic. The issue also is in relation to people going across. The Federation has had a policy in place when we have been asked what happens in relation to individuals going across there, either for giving aid or for those that are thinking of being part of the armed struggle. Well, certainly for the armed struggle, the Federation's point is very clear. We discourage, or where possible, if we can stop, we would stop people from going across there. The reason for this is the situation in Syria is very complex. There's a number of warring factions that are there. We do not even know at this stage who's on the right and who's on the wrong, and what is right and what is wrong. That's arbitrary. That is something for people to discuss at another time. So certainly, for people to go across there is something that we have definitely spoken out against. We're also pleading to young people that consider not only what is happening out there and its impact on your family life, impact on your mother and father and brothers and sisters, siblings at home, your career in the future, career prospects, etc. Is one jeopardizing all of this simply because they think they know what is right and going across there to fight. And many atrocities are being conducted in the name of a number of people in that part of the world. So our view is very simple. Please support the people of Syria, but support it through generous giving, raise awareness, help them through either medication, money, or events that you can hold, but certainly not to go across. That is something that we are absolutely clear on, and is something that I think is non-negotiable as far as the Federation is concerned. The vast number of people that we have spoken to are of that opinion, to say these issues are very complex. We have spoken to some of our religious leaders, jurists, and also the imams in various mosques, and they are very much in the same view as we have, that this is something that we need to be very mindful about and should not enter into a debate unnecessarily by going across there. That will not help the people in Syria. Nevertheless, there are other issues that are of difficulty to people. The issue about recently what happened in Gaza, and you did mention about taking aid there, but unfortunately that's not possible because the place has been landlocked. The Federation has been working very actively with government. In fact, we took a peace flag to Downing Street to present to the Prime Minister, and we recently had the chair of the FMO actually travel across with the local mayor in Leicester to see for themselves what's happened in some of the occupied territories. So our view in relation to that part of the world is we believe that a peaceful solution should be reached. We see no reason why members of the Jewish, Christian, and Muslim community cannot live in peace and harmony with each other, with due respect for each other and respect for human rights, which unfortunately in some cases, or in many cases, is being violated. These are issues of deep concern, certainly to the Muslim community. The issue of Palestine, the issue of Masjid al-Aqsa, the Holy Sanctuary in Jerusalem, right in the heart of the Muslim community, is central to our faith. The conflict in that part of the world has more traction with the Muslim community than any other part of the world. We must realize that. So we urge the British government to ask its international partners to bring about a just solution for that part of the world, that members of all three faiths and the people of no faith can live in peace and harmony and respect each other's common humanity, which unfortunately is missing. Now, this is not the time for the wider debate on this particular issue, but aid to that part of the world is crucial. We have seen many people displaced. We've seen the country itself in need of fuel, in need of medicine, in need of fuel, etc. And all of this needs to be addressed. The British government is doing what it can, but it's never enough, as you say. And again, we are in a privileged position as the UK government because we are part of Europe, though we don't have the euro, sometimes we forget that. We are head of the Commonwealth. We have an international standing internationally, and we have a lot of goodwill, and that we can call upon international communities to work together to alleviate the suffering of the people in that part of the world. And I think by working together on these kind of projects, I think is the way forward. Of course, there needs to be a political solution, but I don't think today's conversation is in relation to the political aspect of it. It's let's reach out to the basic humanity out there. How do we reach out to the individual in the street there, and how the individuals can then link themselves and have a buy-in into a bigger world, and we be part of history that as British citizens, as citizens of this country, at least this is the least that we've done to support people in Iraq, in Syria, in Palestine, or for that matter, in any other part of the world. It's so crucial for us.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. You said earlier on, Suleiman, that giving, zakat, is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It's fundamental, it's admirable, and the people of Leicester and the community have shown that before, during, and after Ramadan. It's ongoing. The same is happening in Muslim communities in other parts of the United Kingdom. You also said we're not here today to talk specifically about politics. I'll talk a little bit about the Palestinian issue at the end of my response. But your point about travel is very important. It is heartbreaking to see 16-year-old girls leaving their home and going to a foreign country, not speaking the language of the country, and travelling on trust. And the trust is misplaced. So anything that can be done to discourage that is to the good, and I'm very grateful for the position of the Federation on that. We talk to Syrians. Part of the job of the Foreign Office is to talk to Syrians on the ground. We have a roving ambassador who meets people. They say they don't want Assad. They say they don't want the self-styled Islamic State and the intimidation and terror that has brought in Syria and in Iraq. At the same time, they don't want foreign fighters. They have enough fighters. That's not the issue. And as I said earlier, this crisis, which has lasted too long, is going to be resolved by a political negotiation, eventually, and a transition from the mess we are in Syria, frankly, to a political outcome which is more stable, which is more democratic, and which is more representative of the Syrian people. We don't think that will be with Assad in charge, because he has lost the trust of his people. My last point would be to say a word about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I spent 3 years in Jerusalem meeting President Abbas and his people in Ramallah, and visiting Gaza as often as I could. It is clear that if there need to do that within defined borders and with mutual respect and mutual sovereignty. That's what we're trying to achieve. That's what I think Secretary Kerry tried last year and until this spring to achieve. He will be trying again. We haven't got there, and the conflict in Gaza and South Israel was and is a tragedy, with more than 2,000 people killed in Gaza and more than 60 people killed in Israel. It's a tragedy. There's a need to rebuild Gaza. Once again, the community, and working hand in hand, in fact, with the Department for International Development, both are focusing on this issue. The Department for International Development has increased its budget to spend in Gaza, quite rightly, because the need is vast. No power station, not enough drinkable water, sewage in the streets. There is a lot of rebuilding to be done, and we need to find a way to get the materials in to do that. In the long term, and I speak from my 3 years witness of this crisis, there needs to be an outcome which is a win-win. Security for the State of Israel, which we recognized back in 1950 as a state, and security and justice for the Palestinian people. And that includes lifting the closure of Gaza so that people can move as they should between Gaza and the West Bank, both people and goods and services, students, medical training and healthcare. As you said, we're not here to resolve that issue today. Believe me, we want to resolve it. We're not happy with the status quo.
I think it's important, Sir Vincent, especially the issue of the siege on Gaza. The immediate relief can only take place for the Gazan people if the border restrictions are lifted, the allowing of food, medicine, fuel, building materials to come in. I think that should actually be the first step forward, and then of course talk about the longer term, because there's an immediate relief that needs to be done, and this is where charities can play an important role. But one other issue that I wish to put on record, the reason the Federation discourages people to go and join forces, be it ISIS or is in Iraq or go to Syria, it's not because the government thinks it's wrong. We think as Muslims that it's wrong. We think it's morally wrong. We think it's morally bankrupt to have people to go out of the world to join a conflict where already so many deaths are taking place. So as a Muslim, we believe that it's our duty to discourage members of our community, so much as the government may tell us that people should not go across there, but as responsible citizens, we know what the duty is. And this is what the Federation position is, that as Muslims, we should know better. We cannot be party to conflict which has no end, that has no sanction, that has no understanding. What is it that we are doing? Muslims are taught over and over again that through the lips of a Muslim, through the actions of a Muslim, nobody should be hurt. This is a religion that talks about peace, of love, of working with each other. So I think it's more our religious duty. And sometimes, at least I can say, thank you very much for reminding us of our duty, but we are duty bound ourselves to understand this. So people who may be listening to this must understand that it is from our point of view, as a Muslim, we are saying do not go across there. Not simply because government is telling us, we welcome what government has told us, we take that advice, but that is not the primary reason. The primary reason is, as Muslims, we should not be there, we should not be going across there, and we should be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
I agree with that. Just to conclude, I would say your point about writing to 27 MPs and to have your democratic voice heard in this country about our policy is also entirely right. What matters is that the government should be in touch with the people, and the people should be influencing the government. That's also a fundamental right of every British citizen. I'm very glad that you're exercising it. I would encourage you to continue to do so. The issues we've talked about today, in addition to the humanitarian issue, are quite controversial. There are many points of view. Express what you think to your MP, to ministers. They want to know, because what the people think
What's most important is, again, as a reminder that as Muslims we are a community that is positively contributing to the British way of life. We appreciate that we have made the United Kingdom our home. Many who have come from traumatized backgrounds, many who have fled persecution in other parts of the world, and the British people have opened up their homes, have opened up their hearts to the people and have welcomed them into this country. For that, I'm sure, and I can assure you that certainly my community is very grateful for. We may not necessarily agree on everything in relation to foreign policy. In fact, we don't agree on many things. That does not mean that we do not continue dialogue and talking. There's a process, there's a legal process in this country that we can adopt, and there's a political process. And let's use these two vehicles to talk about our grievances, and that is the only way forward. And this is what I would encourage people to do, is the liberal democracy that's taken us hundreds of years to get where we are here today. Let us cherish that. Other parts of the world can only dream about the freedoms that we enjoy in this part of the world, and as a result of that, we should exercise those freedoms within the parameters of the law to work and to lobby our members of parliament, our government. I know they don't listen to everything that we say, but nevertheless, we have a voice at least, and let's exercise that voice. I think that is more crucial.
I think the voice is getting louder, and it's getting very, very focused, and it's being listened to. And I would just conclude by saying, just as our Department for International Development is giving on an unprecedented scale, and so the Muslim communities in the United Kingdom are giving to Syria, to the 1 million displaced people in Iraq, to the tragedy and the people who are suffering in Gaza. Let's continue to do that, and let's talk about the policy as best we can and reshape it, shape it into the democratic way that we have. But in the meantime, giving is very important, and I am very glad